Well, I want to welcome everybody here to our first Wander Wisely. It's going to be a set of presentations that we're going to be having that brings in travel leaders, travel tourist boards from different countries, different companies, and things like that, just so we can um, showcase different ways to travel. Our goal always is to have purposeful travel where you get beyond just the relaxing, and the resort is wonderful, but hey, step out as well and learn about the culture and the people, and it just really broadens your mind and horizon. But a little bit about us. So we're Jason and Donna Miller. We're travel agents with ET Family Travel. The travel agency is headquartered in Long Island, Garden City, New York. It's won many awards and things, and our services are always free. So we can plan a extravagant international trip or just a staycation nearby your home. So and a little more, we've been to over 80 countries and all 50 states, and been to two Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands, so U.S. territories. So we're pretty adept travelers, know quite a bit about things. And we also have our own travel blog and series, like we have our travel blog is Pursuing Travel with the Millers. And we also have YouTube that is YouTube as well, and that we've just started out to showcase some of the different places that we have been. So that's a little bit about us. So I'm going to turn it over to Donna real quick for a message about um, a message about Jamaica.
Right. So we know that there was a hurricane, Cat 5, the largest there's been, hit Jamaica yesterday. And I just want to put our heartfelt thoughts and prayers to Jamaica, and just put it out there that there are things we could do from home to help in the aftermath of this hurricane. One option that we are thinking of doing is the Sandals Foundation. Everything that you donate to the Sandals Foundation goes to the Caribbean. They are on the ground in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands. And you know that if you donate to them, it will go to the right place. You're also welcome to donate to any of your favorite foundations that would be helpful as well.
Yep. So yeah, we're definitely thinking of Jamaica and all the places that are really struggling right now, like Ukraine as well. That, I mean, they've been under a terrible um, onslaught for a long time now, unfortunately. So, without further ado, we're going to get to the meat of the presentation here, and I want to introduce to you Robert Rose, who is the host of Raw Travel, a wonderful show that you can catch pretty much all over the country. And he's been all over the place, and he also promotes travel just like we do, purposeful travel with a purpose, that real travel experience. The intro on his TV show is something that I really look for, that I it's something that's important to me, the way that Robert puts that. So it's the way I like to travel, and think that it's important for everyone to give that a shot. So with that being said, this is Robert, and welcome to our very first Wander Wisely.
Hey guys, happy to be your first guest. Who knows? This might 20 years from now, you might look back and say, let's review our first episode. You
Yeah,
never
right.
know. First, I remember our first episode was 200 episodes ago, right? Had no idea. And, just so you know, I remember hating the job because I'd never been on camera before and I hated it and I wanted to quit. But I didn't because I said, well, I promised my camera guys, I would pay them and I may as well get my money's worth. So I did take after take after take. And we were able to, create an episode that was watchable. And, it turned into something um, that I never perceived would happen. For us, at least for me, for my expectations, it far exceeded it. So whenever someone's doing something for the first time, I always think about the time I did something for the first time and what it turned into. And so I hope, you never know. I've also done many things that never took off past a few efforts. So you never know where something's going to head, but I hope this works out for you guys, and I think you're on the right track. So I'm honored.
We gotta do you gotta start somewhere, try different things. I mean, this is a kind of a step out for us, especially Donna, that I've done all kinds of, like, in my software engineer career, done a variety of presentations and things. So I'm decently adept at it, but this is still the interview kind of format. It's all new to us. But let's jump on in, and we want to talk about some meaningful travel kind of moments, and get, pick your brain of some of the things that you've encountered and advice that you have out there for travelers. So first question is going to be really broad. What does travel mean to you?
Well, I think it's evolved over the years. The reason I started traveling in the first place was actually when I started my independent media career, and I had a ton of stress because was a new entrepreneur. I didn't have a lot of money, and I had taken a big risk for me, and I was physically at the ripe old age of, like, I don't know, 32, 33, a mess. Wasn't sleeping. I felt like pain in my right arm, and I was like, am I having a heart attack? And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, I need to get out of here, even though I could not afford it. So I just got online and booked a trip to Costa Rica, actually, and went to Costa Rica for a few days. And this is before the internet and cell phones followed you everywhere. So what happened was, when I got out there, took a solo trip, and it just changed my life. I had traveled before domestically and maybe to Cancun, Mexico, which I didn't really count, but I'd never been on a solo journey before. And the impact of that trip completely changed my mind. I was able to reset, put things into perspective. I got rid of the fear of starting a business because I'd always worked for someone before. And not only did I feel better physically, mentally, I came back ready to attack and do what I had to do to be successful, which was a ton of work, obviously. And every time I got stressed out after that, I would just mentally go back to that trip and give myself that pep talk that I had given myself in Costa Rica when I was traveling solo. So it changed my life. And my first project was not a travel show at all, but I always used travel under, as that company grew. It was a Latin TV show, actually, called American Latino. And basically, it was very successful. Financially, it was way more successful than Raw Travel because I ended up selling it 9 years later. And I had people that worked for me and all that stuff, but it was not something that I enjoyed it, but I'm stressed out all the time. So travel always was a way to manage stress and reset my perspective, and also to appreciate the problems that I was having were minor compared to the individuals that I saw when I traveled. Because of my Latin TV show, I wanted to go to all the Latin countries, practice my Spanish, which is still not very good, but I wanted to hit as many Latin countries as possible. So I did that, and I was going mostly to Latin America, which has a lot of poverty, and got into volunteering and just, yeah, that's how I got into travel. And so for me, travel began as stress relief. It still is stress release. I still need it. If I don't travel, I get cranky. We have to come up with a word like hangry, right? When you get hungry and angry, call it trangy. That doesn't sound good, does it? So we'll come up with something where you need
Yeah.
to travel and you're starting to get snappy with people, especially here in New York. It gets kind of intense, and I can tell when I start looking at people in a less sympathetic, empathetic way, I need to go. Because as soon as I come back from a trip, almost anywhere I go, I come back full of love for people. And before I go, I'm kind of annoyed with people, but I'm a people person. And so that's what travel does to me. And that's what it means for me now. It's a little bit different.
I can tell you that everything you said is like a carbon copy of us, that dealing with the corporate job and all of that kind of stuff and things, that travel is that way of meeting new people. We find people internationally just so friendly, kind, and it resets yourself and does wonders for your mind, and you also learn as well as you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. It changed my life. And that's why I did Raw Travel. I wanted to see if I could impact as many people as possible, encourage them to travel in a very different way than the commoditized version of travel, which is what gets sold to people because it becomes an industry, which is necessary if you're trying to make a living from it. But it's kind of like being a professional musician versus, being a musician for the love of music. If you can merge those two, if you can be a professional musician without killing your love of music, then you have succeeded, regardless of how much money you make. If you are a professional musician and you're just following this and this is just a way to make money for you, and the love of music has died, then you have failed, no matter how much money you make. And it's the same thing with travel.
Yep. Well, I agree with you 100%. So, continuing on that kind of vein of thought, can you name a couple of the most meaningful and impactful moments that you've had in your travels? I mean, it's tough to do. It'd be tough for us to do too, but just a couple of things that the wow, man, that changed my mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get a lot of time to contemplate past travels, but I do remember a few instances where I'd be traveling and go to bed that night and just be so full of gratitude and just be like, wow, I cannot believe. Because if you saw where I came from like tiny town in Tennessee where I just got back from, and I am reminded of how small my world was. So when you're in somewhere like Ethiopia, the day that I met the Southern tribes in Ethiopia, well, I think it was 1 or 2 days that I went and traveled and met them. I'm immersed in a completely different world with people who do not speak anywhere near English. I've seen limited people like me, and I've seen no people like them. And hanging out in a hut, drinking coffee with them, and somehow communicating and overcoming that humanity, that lack of communication, but we're still able to communicate is extraordinarily powerful. And I'm very grateful for that. And because I know that even no matter how much you travel, that's a difficult, it's not easy to get to, it's hard to coordinate, but that's kind of like Richard Burton, in the 1800s or 1900s, whenever he was traveling, like that culture shock was real. And I felt a little taste of that, and that was pretty amazing. And I think that's pretty powerful. I also went to Southeast Asia after my father had passed, like literally a week. I didn't even know if I'd be able to leave because he was, on his deathbed, and we knew he was going to pass, and it was time. But I did make the trip, and so I'm in Southeast Asia, all jet lagged and whatnot, and with that recent grief, in me, and so that was very powerful. So again, travel is a way to kind of set your perspective and make you grateful. And yeah, those are the instances that stick out. But also that Costa Rica trip, that very first one, just driving alone by myself, which is tame by comparison now to what I've done. But it was very powerful for me at the time. Powerful to be alone and traveling and reading a map, no Google Maps, reading a map and figuring out, how to get from point A to point B was, and not speaking the language well. It was powerful.
Yeah, I mean, we've had plenty of our moments kind of like that like, I mean, our very first time, the first country we ever went, we had never been out of the country before, was actually Jamaica. So that was the once again in a more impoverished country, seeing that, and then going over next to Grand Cayman, it was on a cruise. Seeing the differences around the world and things like that was eye opening. And then also visiting the Middle East was an amazing experience for us when we visited Jordan just a couple of years ago, and the friendliness of the people that, I mean, we're constantly said, "What? Well, you're welcome here." And just the like the for going a Bedouin tribe going out to there, and they welcome us with that traditional Bedouin coffee. um Waking up early to see sunrise over Wadi Rum, where it's so quiet you can hear a truck that's a couple of miles away, their stereo, and seeing that and thinking of Lawrence of Arabia and things like that. Those are all kind of moments that just stick with you and change that perspective of thinking about different peoples. And you kind of find that people are more alike than they are different around the world. There is the different cultures, of course, and that's the spice of life, but people are still, just wanting safety, not a good place to raise their family, and are friendly and helpful more so than not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm always considering, all the issues in the world, and you mentioned Ukraine and the what I call the preventable suffering, right? So we have suffering like the hurricane, and we can argue maybe that was preventable because of climate change. 180-degree wind, 180 mile per hour winds is not normal. And that's what they're dealing with. And so in Jamaica, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like we can't prevent, like no human being is causing that. So when you have a human being like in Russia's war on Ukraine, a horrific situation in Darfur right now where there's probably genocide going on. I mean, we don't know what's happening there, but they can see the blood from satellite. And, I would say, travel has been a double-edged sword, as most things are, right? You get this beautiful experience, but, you know, it also brings knowledge. It's like eating from the tree of knowledge. And so now that you can't go back to not knowing. And so, when you see the hospitality of people in Jordan, or like for me, when I went to Turkey for the first time in Istanbul, and people were just so genuine and nice, and you're like, wait, I thought I was supposed to be afraid of Muslims. Oh, wait, that's Islamophobia. And you realize that the hospitality, because they're treating you like a guest, they're basically a traveler to them is an angel from on high, and which is also taught in the Bible, which is that you don't know who you're entertaining, so they're very hospitable to you because their religion tells them to be, and it's heartfelt because it means that much to them. So when you see that, and then you come back to the United States and you see, as I said, preventable suffering caused by our own ignorance and stupidity, it frustrates you and it makes it difficult, And so it's a double-edged sword because you have these wonderful experiences, but then also because now it makes it tougher. It can be painful.
It changes everything. Like, I mean, it changed us quite a bit. I can tell you over the years. So this is more of kind of just a travel tip kind of question. What do you prepare for when you're going on your trip, you're filming, especially in the more exotic locations that are a little bit tough? Like I've seen in some of the shows, you're waiting for a bus that never comes, and things like that. And plus your "When Travel Goes Wrong" series of things. So, I mean, what do you do a lot of planning, or do you just wing it, or a mixture?
You can plan all you want in certain destinations. It will not matter a bit because when travel decides to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So, I try to plan. It depends on the destination, and ironically, it's easier to plan in a place like South Korea, for example. I had the support of the South Korean Tourism Bureau, so they had everything hooked up. I had people picking us up at the airport. every minute of our day was planned out, and I could just chill and enjoy and film and focus on creating the TV show. And that was a beautiful experience. I love that. But most of the time when I'm traveling with the show, especially at the beginning, independently without very much help. And at that point, you have to try to plan and you have to try to, get your stuff together. But the main things are, you think, with the internet, you can go on travel forums and see what's up. What type of electricity do you have? Do you need adapters? For me, producing a TV show, I needed to make sure that we had, ability to shoot and back up. Over the years, things changed. When I first filmed, we went for 8 weeks busing through Central America. Hard drives filled up quickly because they couldn't hold as much. So I had to send an editor back to the US and bring another camera guy. Like basically, we made a crew switch 4 weeks in so the editor could go back with this valuable footage that we had shot and back it up, in the US and make sure that we had some safety copies. Because again, this was my investment and I was losing money. And so, but later on that became less necessary. I learned after filming and also technology. And now to where my second trip to Costa Rica, which is actually airing this weekend, is not the most beautifully shot show at all. It's one of the worst shot shows because it was my first going solo filming. But I went because someone had booked me to speak at a thing in San Jose, and I had not been back to Costa Rica since that very first trip, which at the time was, 15 years earlier. So now it's like 25 years earlier, right? And so it was like 15 years since I'd been, or 20 years since I'd been. And I was like, what if I recreated that experience that I had when I first went to Costa Rica? I take it back. I have been with the crew when we went through Central America, but I wanted to recreate that experience. So I filmed solo. And so filming solo freed me from all the planning because I already knew I'm going to San Jose. I don't have to worry about when you have a camera crew, you need to make sure you're working and optimizing time because time is money. When you're not paying a camera crew and you are the camera crew, man, I could just chill, film when I wanted to, instead of saying, "Oh, Rob, this is beautiful. Come up with something good to say." And I'm like, what can I say? It's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Repeat myself. I would only film when I was inspired to say something. Like I can write when I'm inspired. I cannot write on demand. That's why I would be a terrible guy to be on deadline. Now maybe I could, get into it. I'm sure I could figure it out. And if I did it as a living, I would do it. But I love writing when I'm inspired. I don't like writing because I have something to write at a certain time. And so it's the same thing producing a show. So I don't know if I answered your tips, but if you're just traveling, you're not having to produce a show, just get the basics down, man. What kind of clothes, what's the weather like? What's the electricity like? What's my transportation options? And then, just realize you're going to make mistakes and that's part of it. And, just have fun. Don't let the planning. I'm not a huge planner. I like to wing it. I do. I love to wing it. That's why going solo is wonderful because I sometimes will and that's how I started my first travels after Costa Rica. I would just book the airline, the flight in and flight out, the first night's hotel, and I would wing it the rest of the time. Sometimes to my benefit, and sometimes it didn't work out, but I like that better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're kind of the opposite. We like to have things generally planned with the free time to do those because some of the most amazing experience we had were ad hoc. That I mean, we would, just be walking through a town, and then we encounter like Norway as an example of that actually. We were in the fjords of Norway, and we happened to be there on their Constitution Day, so their version of Fourth of July. So we got to see their kids parade and stood next to a Norwegian man who was telling us in English, like, this is what this means, this is what this means. And that wasn't planned. We just showed up and like, hey, the parade's going by.
Right.
And they were friendly enough to, same thing in Mexico. We were there for Dia de los Muertos, and we were in Guadalajara. We showed up at a lake It's a long name, the name of the lake that's near there.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pronounce it here,
Yeah.
but it's like Aegiac is the city or something like that we're at. But they were a good friend of mine who lives there was driving us over to see this beautiful town. He says, "Oh, I don't know what this traffic jam is for." He says, "Oh, it's a parade." It says you can get out if you want to go see it. And we saw, the people dressed up in indigenous clothing, and then, the a float being held by everybody with, I believe it was Mary that was there, that they were bringing into the church, and they were parading it around. So it's just those kind of amazing things that when you don't plan everything. But a little bit of a shameless plug. Hey, when travel goes wrong and stuff like that, that's where a travel agent sometimes can help you out.
I
We
agree.
call ourselves the. I used to work for NASA. My dad did. My grandpa was in mission control. So the way I put it is, your travel agents are your mission control when you're away. So a little shameless plug for us.
Yeah, I think a skeleton plan absolutely is 100% necessary. You can't go in I mean, you can completely unplanned, but you're going to spend the whole time planning your trip, and that's no fun because you're not traveling. So what's great about having
Exactly.
a plan is that you can enjoy the trip. So yeah, I agree with you. You got to have some planning.
Yeah, we've seen some people say like, "Hey, I just arrived at such and such. What's a good hotel that we should maybe go stay at, or what's a good city to go to?" And I'm kind of like, "Whoa!" Like, I mean, at least have where you're going set set up, and then do then do whatever you want from there.
Yeah, yeah. And also your comfort level. If you're going to be stressed out because you're not planned out, then, by all means plan out different strokes for different folks as
Yeah,
they.
and oh yeah, that we have family that still says that, and so
Yeah.
So, hey, we definitely are good with that. So, moving on to a couple of more questions here. Um, one of the things, kind of a nice story that connects us is I reached out to you when I was going to Peru to say, hey, do you have any companies and things like that that you would recommend? And you sent us to Valmos expeditions in Peru. And the Carolina was actually ended up being your guide while you were there. So where I'm going with this is I mean, what's it like for you working with the locals on the trips? And a second kind of question is, when you are uh, when you're um, do you keep up with a lot of your relationships around the world like we do? This is, I mean, for example, we're actually still in touch. I messaged Carolina and said, "Hey, I'm going to have Rob on the on our program and stuff." So, talked with her, and I still talk with people in Jordan and all over the world. And I think for me personally, that's another meaningful part of travel, that you can still, Calvin and Trinidad and Tobago that we work with, that's such a enriching part too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, you're concerned about Jamaica because you've been there now, people, and that's what's important. Empathy. I talk about empathy a lot. And I mean, look at my shirt, Ukraine Strong, right? I first visited Ukraine in 2012. Their revolution began in 2014, the Maidan Revolution, which kind of not started, but was the impetus where Russia was being more belligerent with them. And basically, in 2014, I was kind of tuned out because my trip to Ukraine was short, was part of a broader trip that I'd made to Central Europe, and I didn't meet a lot of people that time. But the second time when I went back in 2019, I was in the area and did a little solo travel on my own. And there I met tons of people, and the whole country had changed dramatically. And I was just like, wow, this is addicting. Like all these people are so excited about their country. I did not experience that in 2012, pre-revolution. It felt like, a smaller version of Russia, is what I tell people, even Ukrainians, even though, I understand that's not the case at all. Once you get, more attuned to it. But yeah, Haiti, anywhere I go, Peru, I meet people, and now when something good or bad happens, I think about them, and do I keep in touch? Absolutely. It might be one of the only, there's a checklist of pros and cons to social media. One of the few pros is that you are able to stay in touch with people all over the world. Keep in touch with them in Georgia, my buddy in the country of Georgia. They're going through a revolution right now. Serbia, they're protesting right now. An oppressive government. I mean, it's why, listen, man, people tell me quite frequently, they try to, and they just don't get it. Stop being political. Just talk about travel. I'm like, do you understand that travel is political? Like the revolution in Ukraine, I traveled there, man. What's going on in Haiti? Like life is political. And I didn't always believe that. And matter of fact, naively, I used to say, oh, raw travel is not political. But yet we were. We just didn't know it. We were talking about conserving the environment. That has become, and I don't think it should be political. The political would be the solution to climate change.
Mhm.
But if you're going to talk about the existence of climate change being even, because dark forces are trying to, of course, deny what's actually happened so they can continue to make money. And if the root of most evil is actually money. And so basically, at the end of the day, when you're asking me not to be political, you're asking me not to be alive. And then you're asking me
True.
to erase from my memory everything that I learned from traveling. I can't do that, and I wouldn't do that. Why would I do that? You're asking me to go back and to regress to a little boy who grew up in Tennessee and even then I was an explorer. Even then I traveled my farm and was on my own traveling. And that's what travel brought to me. Is like, I feel like, again, that little boy, who's alone and traveling his farm and going fishing on the creek and doing things like that. It was a big adventure. And that to me is travel. And so you're never the same after travel. It's just like you're continually growing. And if you're not continually growing, then you're starting to die. And what I want to do is I want to live until I die. And so when I die, it's over. But until then, I want to live right up until that moment of death if I possibly can. You don't get to pick and choose, but I hope so. And that involves being aware of what's going on in the world.
I can't agree with you more on that. It says for me, it's I'd say, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. And even as a kid, like my parents would say, that when I went on that first trip to Florida and stuff like that, I was hooked. And I watch shows like, this will be dating myself a little bit, but Where in the World is Carmen San Diego, and things like that. So back in the day, so I was looking at the different countries and just dreaming myself like, wow, I want to learn and see about that someday. On Nickelodeon, Legend of the Hidden Temples, where they're talking about these legends and things around the world. So that was all really, important to me and helped me on the travel journey. And I agree that when you see things, you can't unsee them, you can't unlearn them. And travel, like Rick Steves has a good book called Travel as a Political Act.
Read
And
it. It is, yeah.
this is that's
My
an excellent.
Steve's went from here to here when I read that book because I'm not a huge fan of his show. I do watch it from time to time, but I'm a massive fan of his writing and his book. And that book has really changed my view of him. I was like, he gets it. He understands what
Yeah.
travel is. And yeah,
It's an excellent read for anybody out there. So we're towards the end of our time here, and it's been a great great talk. And like I said, it's all being recorded. But I'll let if there's any kind of questions, anybody can put it in the because we will might have time for a couple of questions if anybody has them there. So just drop it in the chat, and we'll take a look. But in closing, I mean, what advice do you have for travelers out there and ways to and a plug for our new series, Wander Wisely?
Yeah. So, advice for Wander Wisely. First of all, I love the name. I think it's great because it basically says to me, you have a limited amount of time on this earth, which some people don't want to think about, but I do all the time. What are you going to do with it? And so while you're traveling, pick wisely. Where do you really want to go? And what will be the most possibly life-changing trip that you can take? All of them are. I'm going to Costa Rica again, ironically, in about 2 weeks because I needed a quick, easy, relatively speaking, getaway. And I wanted to get my health, my mind, and my body right, right? And so that's what that is about. But after that, I plan on doing some locations I haven't been to before. When I go to Ukraine, it has a certain mission that I'm doing. I'm doing more video journalism there. I'm there to help out. I'm there to give people hugs, to offer moral support, to maybe raise some money and awareness. So every trip that I do, has a different focus to it. If it's the first time, I'm really just a blank slate. I love being a blank slate and going in. And I want to do more of that travel. But sometimes my advocacy with Ukraine kind of, I don't want to say gets in the way, but it takes over that. And I'm like, so long as you're doing something that you're passionate about, it doesn't really matter whether you're here or there or whatever. You gotta follow that. And I think, my mission these days, especially in the times that we live in, um, it can feel like the popular thing is to be negative, cynical, hypocritical, to lie, to cheat. And I think the more that seems to be the popular thing, the more you need to double down on what it is you stand for, which for me is okay, if they're going to play that game, then I got to equalize the universe because I do believe it's kind of balanced good versus evil. So I'm going to double down on my good. And I'm going to basically do everything I can to live every day to be like when I go to bed that night, what did I do good today? Did I help brighten someone's day or did I make it worse? Did I yell at somebody on the street or did I, talk to a homeless person that looked like they were down on their luck and maybe I could brighten their day? So I try to do that every day. And I think travel is a great way to do that. So I just recommend that you keep your passion forefront. You don't lose focus on doing that by making money and making a business of it. And sometimes the business gets in the way of your passion, and it did with me because you do need to make a living at it. But when it starts to take precedent, you need to back off and remember why you got into the what you're doing in the first place, and make sure that that drives you. Because if that drives you, the money will fall into place, the success will fall into place, and success is relative. You're not looking to be a billionaire. I could never be a billionaire because as soon as I got to 1 million, I'd be like, or 100 million. I'd be
Okay.
whatever. Yeah, I'd be like, good enough, man. I got enough. And frankly, I do have enough right now. I have enough, man. I don't need more.
It's my thoughts exactly is have enough to be comfortable and give back to others and things like that. I don't need a three Maseratis or stuff like that. Says what good does that do for anybody? I'm okay with our the right now our 2010 Mitsubishi Lancer we got out there. Hey, it gets me to the park and ride to go to the
Yeah,
office.
there
So
you go.
it
Billionaires are
works.
like some of the most miserable people in the world. I don't think
Yeah,
Elon Musk is a happy person.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
Donald Trump's an happy person. I see a lot of miserable people and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, they're all about the money and they're pretty miserable. And a lot of
Yeah,
Americans chasing that are
and
miserable.
miserable.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Well, we'll ask Sue has a question, and then we'll go ahead and close things out because we're right at the end of the time. How long does it take you to reacclimate to New York City when you come back from another country?
I don't even have to go to another country, Sue. I can just go to Tennessee for a few days and come back. And usually, you know, when I come back, depends. Like for Tennessee, I'm usually like happy to be back because now I've gone polar opposite from what Tennessee is to, you know, energy, people. Not that Tennessee doesn't have energy, but you're in your car. It's a more traditional American experience where it's Tennessee, New York, you're on the streets and people are there and you're interacting with people from different cultures and more. You do that in Tennessee as well, but more in New York. So in, you know, but it only takes a day or two. When I travel internationally, like when I was gone to Ukraine or East or Europe this summer for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it takes longer to acclimate, and then it is a more negative experience because I'm overcoming jet lag. I'm thinking about where I was. I had a very powerful experience, and now life seems mundane and routine. And then it takes a couple of weeks. So it depends on the destination where I've been. But then after that 2 weeks, then I start to feel the positive impacts of that travel, and I'm seeing it from a different point of view. The jet lag has lifted. Jet lag has a lot to do with mental acuity. I mean, just your mental state. You know, I can Anthony Bourdain, unfortunately, you know, uh, let some demons get the best of him, and I'm so sorry that happened. But I do attribute jet lag to part of that because you don't see the world clearly. You're not thinking clearly. I don't think it was obviously the soul part, but it doesn't help your mental state. And so you really need to set some time to take care of yourself. And I try to do that when I get back from New York. I don't over, I just, you know, take things as they come. And then sometimes I come back re-energized and just ready to rock and roll immediately. So it depends on the destination, how far I was gone, you know, how far I was, you know, traveling.
Yeah, and I can tell you from our side that we haven't found a real good way to beat jet lag. I don't think there really is because as I tell anybody who's going overseas to Europe or things like that, that when you get over there, you're going to feel pretty awful when you first get there. Same way when you get back. Says you just power through it. Like there's been many a times I've gone over to Europe and says, "Man, I'm not doing this again. I feel terrible. I'm not coming over here." But then, like a day after, and I'm immersing myself in the culture, and I'll say, "Wow, yeah, I'm coming back."
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is so now I mentally prepare myself.
yeah, yeah.
But we're
I
right at
look forward to it.
yeah,
Now I'm
yeah,
like jet lag. It feels like you know, when I'm there, I feel good. And when I'm here, I feel bad. But yeah.
yeah. And so jet lag, I mean, yeah, it is more than just being tired. It's you mentally foggy. You it's just a kind of an odd
Physically
feeling.
sick.
Yeah, sometimes physically sick too, like especially if you're dehydrated and stuff after the long flight. So it can be many things. If you're changing altitude, coming from sea level to that, it can be even more intense. So it can be pretty brutal with all of that. But don't want to keep you too long after our time here. So um, so just want to say once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. And who knows, maybe someday in the future we can collaborate again on something and talk about a different subject. But one plug I want to give for Raw Travel here is, I mean, he has a lot of great merchandise that proceeds go to support Ukraine. We've bought some great shirts like that we wear all the time. Strength, empathy equals strength, because I think that's incredibly important to keep that mindset. We wear that around when we travel and things like that. So something for everybody to consider, to head to look. You can Google Raw Travel TV, and to support the show because it's a great show. You can find it on your local. More than likely, I think you had said 97% of you're in 97% of the markets in the U.S.
Yeah, just go to rawtravel.tv and you'll see where to watch. You can also get a link to our merch page, which has different merch like you were talking about. And our YouTube channel has our season one, including that. No, Costa Rica. My second trip to Costa Rica is there. So all of season one is on YouTube. More will come up later. We're trying to figure out the algorithms, how to best monetize. Well, there's no way to monetize right now on YouTube for us. So we're trying to figure out the best way to deal with the algorithms and all that stuff. I'm not a YouTube influencer. I'm a TV producer. It's on TV, 200 episodes. Eventually it'll be online. But I don't want to just give it away to the tech bros and let them make money from it. I would rather, have a little piece of the action since I did the work. And so that's why it's not all on YouTube right now, because I don't work for
Not easy.
Zuckerberg.
Exactly. It's not easy. I can tell. I mean, we're just starting out with YouTube, so we're not monetized or anything like that. So we know that it's okay. What kind of title works? What kind of, it's not easy.
You can buy your way to success, but what's the point of
No,
that? I like to do it organically. That's how I did the show. And I don't want to have 100,000 fake followers. All my followers are real, and I want to keep it that way. And, if I'm an influencer online, I am. If I'm not, I'm not. And, I have a contrarian view of the marketing industry and the travel industry. And, I'm like, keep chasing those Instagram influencers, but I can tell you right now that half of them are fake or more. And, I'm just not about being fake. The whole idea of raw travel is to be authentic and real,
be
man.
real.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's to
absolutely.
be real.
And I appreciate Sue tuning in and asking some good questions. Just wanted to shout her out, man, because
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you, Sue. Yeah, and thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Well, it'll be on YouTube. I'm gonna take the recording, put it out there, so hopefully we can reach even more folks out there. And stay tuned. We're going to be doing more Wander Wisely next month. We're going to be bringing the tourist board from Antigua and Barbuda, a beautiful island nation out there in the Lesser Antilles. And then we have some river cruise that we're going to kind of discuss in December, and we're looking to bring in, and our goal always is to help everybody travel easier. Yes, we're travel agents, and we would definitely like you to, anyone listening to use our services, but that's not the complete point of what we're doing here. Is we want people to learn to have impactful travel, and travel the way that you would like to travel too. So that's why we're trying to bring in a diverse group of folks. So, with that being said, thanks again, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. Wander wisely, right? Yeah,
Yep,
I like it.
absolutely.
It's good. It's a great name. All right.
All right, you take care, and
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for joining.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.